All right, guys, we're going to jump into our third guest of the show. Now, this gal, before I introduce her, I just want to give a little backstory. She has been a huge support of me through many, many of my chapters of life. She has seen all the sides of me, she has seen all of my mental moments, everything about it. So I'm so pleased to be able to introduce our third guest today, and her name is Lindsay. Hey, girl, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am so good. Thank you so much for volunteering to come on our show today.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I'm so excited. And it's even more exciting because for most people that know, I'm a photographer and I was able to actually capture Lindsay's second pregnancy. And she had obviously her daughter at the time. So it was just like really a magical shoot for us. And it was so stunning. I think it was probably one of my like best first maternity ones. So it's really exciting to have you on the show about this month.
It was like honestly, those pictures are like my favorite memories ever.
I love it. I
They're
love every
so
time I'm
great.
like, is it? I know it's been a while, but like, can I just throw it back like every once in a while? Because they were just like, I just had a moment of like connection, and you were in such a like, you're just so excited too at that time. So I'm just so glad we had those moments. But then equally so, you've seen me through while I was going through divorce too. So we've got to watch each other go through all of our highs and lows together over like the last 7, 8 years, and I just love that. So I'm
There's
super.
thank you for sure.
Yeah, just to mildly put, you know. That's what happens when you work in the patch and not in the patch, but in the patch, and you have to band together with other females that deal with the office life of the oil field.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where our bonding goes.
Entertainment.
Yeah, at minimally entertainment. So before we get into our questions today about childbirth, do you want to tell the community just a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I am Lindsay. I have two kids. They're actually quite far apart in age. My daughter is 12 and my son it just turned 3 last weekend. And we just moved back to around my hometown to about 2 years ago now.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. I know I was like devastated, but I'm also like, what are you doing? You're leaving too.
I know. And then you left anyway. So
Yeah, so it's like, but then you're just like, but I want everyone to be in the same spot so that when I go back,
I
everybody's there,
know that's the sad part. I haven't
right?
actually gone back. I don't think
That's
once.
fair. I've gone back once. I went back and I did a bunch of photo shoots and it was great. And I want to go back, but honestly, I would love to do another round. But at this point, I mean, obviously with all the restrictions, I'm just not even going to bother. But it's also like, you know, when you're in your new home, like you say, you just like you want to spend so much time exploring your area that it's, you know, it's not as priority to go back because there's so much to, and with you like back close to your hometown, so you have more people to see, you know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, when
yeah,
we're allowed to see them.
yeah, exactly. And it's just like,
Someday
oh,
it'll be
yeah,
better.
yeah, one day. And you're like, in the meantime, well, we have that excuse. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
it's nice to just chill though.
It is. It is. So getting into your childbirth then, and like I said, you feel free to comment on one or both. For your due dates, what were you on time? Were you late? How did that pan out for you?
I was actually early with both.
Ooh.
With Maddie, I was 4 weeks early, and that was an emergency C-section. And then with Caleb, I was just under 3 weeks early.
Oh wow. So closely the same early.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
For very, I don't even know exactly why, but very strange.
That's very strange. Yeah, and honestly, when we had the polls, a lot of people were more in that like week to couple week range, whereas very little people within days. So I'm wondering maybe that's just like because they just possibly can't do it, or I'm not sure.
I know that's what I thought too. I'm like, well, I wonder, like, am I just not made to like
Have
carry
them.
for full term and like not
Yeah.
made to like birth babies normally? I don't know.
Yeah. There's so many unanswered questions for these types of things.
Yeah, and like they don't really tell you a whole lot unless they have like detailed information. But
Yeah. So we're just gonna leave that as an open question mark for the rest of our life. Fantastic. I
yeah,
love that for your
exactly,
anxiety. I love
exactly.
that.
Yeah, trauma.
So for both, did you have a birth plan?
Um, with well, mostly didn't want to have C sections. I guess that was like the main thing, but
That's fair.
I was hoping for no medication because I think everyone kind of goes into it thinking, oh, I can do that. It's not a big deal. But then, yeah, everything kind of gets thrown out the window as soon as,
As soon as reality kicks in,
yeah. So,
you're
and
like,
with the C section too, it's like, well, you don't really need the drugs because you can't feel your body anyway. So,
that's very fair. Because other things are happening. They're kind of happening.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and like you said, you didn't plan, but and things don't always, and we know that with life, things don't always go as planned. Did you have one with Caleb? How did that work out?
No, I was just hoping it wouldn't be a C section again after the first one. I mean, thinking, maybe my body would work properly. You know, you always like wonder if it's like something to do with you, if it's your fault that it happened that way or whatever. But with him, it was kind of just like hoping for a vaginal birth, not a C-section, and it didn't work out that way. So
That's fair. That's very fair. And I think that happens for, like you said, you go through it and just and being told that, in your mind and forever subconsciously, it's just like having it naturally medicated is just like, a woman's thing, but
yes,
it's
exactly.
it's it's now it's nice to be advanced that there's so many, like there's been women in the past that would die because they didn't have those C-section options and stuff, right? So as
Yeah,
much
like
as
that's so
it's
crazy and scary. I could not even imagine.
right. So it's like and I totally get that. But I just like, oh man, I feel so grateful that that is a thing, because before that was a thing, I couldn't imagine, like like if you had an emergency or you had an emergency, you were early, at that back in the day, they weren't able to support that. So, but I get where that is something that, you really hope for. And I know a lot of moms say after, and you guys, I don't know what it is. I asked, do you get like this button installed after you have a baby where you get this like mom guilt and shame
Oh yeah.
about how you had your baby, how you conceived it, all these things? Like, let's remove this button, because you guys are all amazing badasses, no matter, you had your fucking stomach cut open. So I'm sorry, but like, that's a level of badassery. But we've all, and the theme of this thing is for our age, especially, things are changing now, but you're just so ingrained to believe a certain things happen a certain way.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And then
And
if it
that's
doesn't go through, then you just like, then immediately, instead of blaming the process or that things might be different, you immediately self-reflect and are like, no, it's me.
yeah, yeah. It's like a huge mind fuck, really.
It's so annoying. I don't know why we do it. And we can be like aware of it in all other aspects, but all of a sudden there's just like one topic in our lives where we're just like complete. I don't know. And sometimes I think obviously when you're have all these different hormones going through, there's all these changes, obviously that's a little bit easier to be aware of. Your feelings could just be necessarily feelings, not facts.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because I mean, your hormones are insane, and it's like you're a crazy person, pretty much at
Yeah.
that point. So
Yeah, and that's what, and you probably, and you're not technically, but you feel like you are, and it's just like but that's, you're like, that's the natural progression of what's happening, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
without that knowledge, you're immediately like, this happens to no one. This is just me. I'm a lunatic. That it is what it
yeah.
is. That's fine. I guess not really, but So then you obviously answered both were cesarean. So then how did that, so obviously you said I'm sorry, English, medicated. I'm not sure. I obviously don't know much about childbirth at all. So when it comes to C-sections, what are the options for like medication? You said you don't feel anything, but do they give you any like happy gas or anything? Like, or do
Well,
they just numb you?
I honestly like with both of mine. Maddie wasn't as traumatizing, but with Caleb, it was like, and like his heart rate kept dropping. I
Mm.
was at the hospital by myself.
Oh, Jesus.
His dad was at work, and he was like an hour out of town.
Of
And
course.
obviously, it wasn't supposed to happen.
No, you're a little bit
So
early.
it ended up being like his heart rate kept dropping, and there was like no time for anything. They were like ripping my clothes off of me, like sticking IV in my arm, and like had anesthesiologists, like I don't even know how many nurses, one or two like my actual doctor, like my baby doctor,
Yep.
came out of a C-section surgery to come see me because she wanted to know what was going on.
Into
So
another one.
yeah, like it was so, and then she didn't do mine, a different doctor ended up doing
Oh,
it. But I mean,
fair.
like, yeah, like it was just so crazy, and I was trying to like get them to take my phone and get a hold of somebody, and yeah, it was just like, so I don't even really know what they do. Like they give you the spinal, which is horrible.
Oh,
And then after that, like you don't really feel anything, like I don't know, it's just kind of like a fog after that.
oh, absolutely. Well, that's all happening, and then you're just like trying to mentally figure out what the fuck's going on. You're like, did anybody call my baby daddy? Like anybody in my family?
Yeah,
It's no. Am I
yeah.
on my I'm on my own here? Okay, cool.
And
What's
like
the
he
fuck?
didn't make it until like an hour after, and yeah, it was, or maybe it wasn't it may have been during or whatever, but like after, when they put
So
me, they were taking me to recovery, they went and brought him to his dad, so he
nice.
had some one-on-one time with him, which was good. But
Totally.
yeah, it was just very traumatizing experience, like
Well, yeah, because at the time you're probably like, "What do you mean his heart rate's dropping?" Like, and then at that time too, you're really again in that hopeful mindset that you were going to be able to do this naturally, and then all of a sudden that's like slipping out of your hands, and then but it's like at the same time you're like, "Okay, but what's going on with my baby here? Like what?
yeah, exactly, that's
And
the
who's
like the
here?"
horrific part. Like it was, I think his heart rate like normally was around like 140 or 135 145, I'll say, and it dropped down to like 56, And it happened a couple of times, and finally they're like, no, like we cannot wait. Like you have to go right now. So
Oh my goodness. And you're like, okay, well, sure. So
here
what
we
else am I
go.
say? Yeah,
All by
here we go again.
myself.
And so with Maddie, can I ask what happened there? Like it was just same kind of
Um,
situation?
her heart rate kept dropping also, but with her, they once they like took her out of my body, they were like, okay, the cord wasn't wrapped around her neck, but it was wrapped around the top of her head. So every time I had a contraction, it was like pushing on her cord, which was making her heart rate drop.
Oh my goodness.
And her cord was like super short and narrow, they said, so that they thought that maybe she wasn't getting enough nutrition at the end there, and that's why I went into labor.
Oh, interesting.
So
A lot of stuff happens with that umbilical cord, I
yeah,
feel.
super weird. And with her, like my water actually broke, like like it does in the movies, like a flood. It wasn't like a trickle, like most people are like, oh yeah, like it was like full on like
Waterfall.
pissed yourself.
Oh man.
Kind
I
of
think
like
yeah.
her dad even asked me because it was like my very last day of work, I think, and then I was supposed to have a month off, but I went into labor like 2 seconds before I left to go to work.
Thanks, Maddie.
Yeah, right. I know, no break at all.
Okay.
And then he's like, "Are you sure you didn't piss yourself?" I'm like, "Are you actually asking me that question? Like for real?"
Like I would think that I mean I know I'm pregnant, but I have some control over
Yeah, like I
something.
think I know if I have to pee.
I would think that I know, but I
Like,
maybe I like now you're
That's like
making
the
me
weirdest feeling too, because there's like no control. It's just all of a sudden it happens. You're like, what the hell is going on? So
that's nuts. So
yeah.
from like when you realize that you're either in labor, because like so for both, sorry, this is gonna sound such a newbie thing, but like for your C-section, so you were going into labor or just like something happened? Like what triggered you again to like go to the hospital to be like, oh yeah, we gotta do this emergency C-section?
Well, for her, I went into labor, and so we went up to the hospital in Athabasca here, and they checked me, and they're like, well, you're not dilated much, so just go home. Take your time, don't be in a rush, like go pack your bag and stuff. They don't deliver babies at the hospital here. It's like a smaller hospital. They don't have all of the stuff for it just in case something happens, so they can't do C-sections here and stuff. So I was going to go to another hospital, and then I went there, they gave me an IV, and then they're like, hey, well, you're still not dilating, so they sent me to the Misericordia Hospital in Edmonton. So I was at 3 hospitals.
Oh Jesus.
And I just wasn't progressing at all. And then her heart rate started doing the drop thing, and then they were like, hey, well, we can't just wait. Like I think I dilated like 2.5 centimeters or something like that
Yeah, that was the
in
same
like
with our
12
last
hours
guest.
almost.
Yeah,
So
that was like our last guest. She's like, okay, well, great.
yeah,
We're
right. Like
progressing
it's like,
fast.
how does nothing happen? I don't get it. I have no
How do
idea.
I visually? Do I just visually think open thoughts? Like, how do
Yeah.
how do I get in tune with her to just like let it go?
Yeah, right. And I don't get how some people like their births are like so quick and easy and fast, and I'm like, how the hell? Like, that's why you're like, what the hell's wrong with my body? Obviously,
Yeah.
gotta be something wrong with me. But
Yeah, and that's immediately what you think, and then that's why I think that's another reason why we love that the show and why we want to get these experiences out, so people in the moment can be like, "Oh no, I heard Lindsay's interview on the podcast, and like this happened to her too, so you know it's okay. It happened to another person. You know, it's not something wrong. It's just everyone's bodies are made different. I know this, but I forget this all the time,
yeah,
and
exactly.
I just need someone else to remind me because this is me personally too. Like every time on every subject, I'm like, okay, I know this, but I need someone to slap me in the fucking face with it."
Yes, for real.
Right?
Like one of my best friends, both her pregnancies, or labors, I should say, like she's obviously, when you never have kids, you think that your labor would last a while. Like her first one was super, she's like, oh, I think it was like I pushed for an hour, she said, or something. And then her second one, she almost gave birth in the car on the way to the hospital.
What?
Yes. Like she was in labor for like 35 minutes or something crazy.
And you're like, yo, I was 2 centimeters in like 12 hours.
Yeah,
And you
like,
were
how
like
the hell
8
does
in
that even
5 seconds.
So weird. But
That's
yeah,
fuck.
it's just crazy how everybody's bodies are so different.
And it's and just I don't know if we were programmed like this or just we grew up like I don't know where this came from, but it's just like, why can't we just accept that we're all different and it's okay and it's still beautiful? I don't know where we do this internal dialogue where we're just like, oh, that's different than another woman, so I must be trash.
Yeah, right. And I feel like it's also too just like over the years as we like grew up and stuff.
True.
Everyone's like,
Aging.
oh, you need to have a baby this way, and you should breastfeed for this many years, and you should do this and this, and like it's almost like you feel like you're doing something wrong if you don't follow what everybody else is doing.
Yes, and I feel like if you're gonna be a parent, like, I feel like there's less that you need to worry about when you're actually about raising your children. You actually have to learn how to better deal with other people's and other parents and other people's advice on
And
pregnancy, childbirth.
criticism, yeah.
Yes, and I feel like I think that is something that most people don't know, like, really think about before, and is one of their biggest problems now because you're already internally feeling the shame or guilt that you shouldn't have, but then someone else says a projection of their insecurities or their bullshit onto you, and then immediately just validate, or you think it oddly validates your insecurity, so it must be real
Oh
even
yeah.
though it's a projection of someone else's bullshit. And it's
Yep.
just like, we know this, but those patterns to reframe that mindset is so fucking hard.
Yeah, and that's like the whole breastfeeding thing too. Like I know some people that are like straight up before they even give birth to their kids are like, I'm not breastfeeding. And it's
Yeah,
like, cool, you do you. Like, why does it shouldn't matter, but people feel like
me.
they have to explain themselves and like make sure that everyone understands why and everything.
Oh,
And like we shouldn't have to do that.
no, it's you should. And I think with everything we're saying, like, it's really your choice, and you get to decide that as a parent, as a human being, as just any of those things. And I think that's another reason why we want to have the shows, have these conversations, to know other people have experiences, to empower them to know that, you can do what is best for you, because all these people are saying, we did everything we thought other people wanted to do, and now we're doing what we want to do. So don't be like us and just do whatever the fuck, because you're going to end up doing it anyways, if that
Yes,
even made sense.
yeah, and that's so true. You will like you get sick of trying to live up to everybody else's expectation.
Of what they think yours should do for your family. They ain't in your house 24/7, honey.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
it's so crazy. Like it really is. Like
And I
I
think that's a big part of parenting, that it shouldn't be a thing, and let's work towards not, but something that I think mentally you guys have to like know going into it, going to school, doing that. People are going to have fucking opinions, and it's going to start the minute you've conceived your baby, and it's going to be real stupid personal questions that no one really needs to ask for the next like however many years.
oh
And
yeah, it's
until
actually
we change that.
it's it's kind of comical sometimes. Like or
It
even when
is.
you're pregnant too, like you go in a store and like strangers like, "Oh, can I feel your belly?" It's like, "No, fucking touch me."
Yeah,
Like,
and like
do
it's
you
so weird
not
here
know
like
what personal space is? Like that's really
yeah.
weird. That's
I mean,
weird.
that's the only thing that we can thank right now for like the bullshit of the world right now, is that like the social distance part. Like, it is sad, but at least it's like for some people that really didn't like that. Now it's like, whoa, 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 6 feet. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like that, but for people that I don't like, I'm like, whoa, 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 man,
Yeah.
social distance.
We cannot hug. Like get out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Or like when you're in a shit mood and you don't want to smile at anyone, it's just like, I don't have to. That's the only good thing. I hate the rest of it, but I can
Yeah.
imagine being pregnant, especially near the end, in the last couple months, when things, like, from what I see, really, for the most people, even if they're smaller at the beginning, really like fold into it at the end.
Mhm.
And I just feel like most of you always say I'm just like uncomfortable, and I know I think I'm glowing and I think it's beautiful, but just like, let me live out my last month or couple weeks,
Yeah,
like,
and really, we probably don't all think we're glowing. We think we're fat
no,
fucking cows, and we
or
think we
glowing
look
from
horrible.
puking. Yeah, and
So
although we all think you're beautiful, like that, when you say that to a pregnant person going through that too, I feel like it's almost fair to like invalidate them. They get more pissed off. You're like, oh yeah, okay, fine. It's like, oh, I'm sorry you feel gross today. I think you look beautiful, but you're allowed to feel gross. Like, it's cool. You do you.
well, also, yeah, it's probably a little bit more of hormonalness and stuff too to just get like bitchy
Like,
instantly for no reason.
exactly. And that's why it's like, okay, approach pregnant women as just the support and the listeners. You let them lead how everything's going to go, and things will work out good for you,
Yeah, there you go,
especially
exactly.
in labor and delivery. Just nod and say yes, ma'am, until it's done, because she is going through shit.
I don't
So
want to
then,
hear your yeah. No, don't.
no fucking opinion right now while I'm going through this. So then, what happened then for Caleb? How did that turn in? Say, I know his heart rate drop. Was the same thing? Did you go into labor, or was it just?
No, well, I was started kind of having contractions, and I had I think it was like an app on my phone, like a contraction type timer, and I
There's
had
an
a
app for everything.
isn't it so weird? Like,
Yeah.
which was really good because I was like questioning myself and I'm like, I don't know. Like, there was a few times where I'd had like false like contractions and stuff.
Yep.
So I was like, well, I don't know. It's still like, I think I had him at like 37 weeks, 2 days. So it was like considered full term, but still early, right?
Yep.
So I didn't really trust that I was like in labor. I thought it was like, okay, I'm just having like Braxton Hicks contractions or whatever. And then I used the timer thing for a while and I'm like, oh shit, like I might need to go to the hospital. So,
Things are getting serious.
so I was by myself
I was
because
like, did you have Maddie?
no, she was at school.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
it was like in the morning. I think it was like probably like, and I want to say like between 8 o'clock and 8:30 in the morning or something.
Yeah.
So she had already gone on the bus. So I
Nice.
was
Bye.
home alone, which was probably a good thing that she wasn't there
Yeah. That would have been
for
a
all the
little bit like,
traumatizing shit that she would have had to deal
yeah.
with. But
So you're never getting grandkids if she sees that.
yeah, no doubt. Also, like her wondering if everything is okay, like it just would not have been
Yes.
good.
Yeah. And then
So
you're trying to like not panic to get her not to panic. Meanwhile, you have to panic.
yeah, exactly. So I had gone to the hospital. I think I texted his dad and I just said, okay, I'm going to get checked, see what happens. And I was, I think, 2 or 3 centimeters dilated. So I dilated more in like the first few hours with him than I did with Maddie ever.
You're
Which
like,
is
yes, progress.
so friggin' weird. And then when I was like, they just had me hooked up to a monitor and stuff to keep like track of my heart rate and his heart rate. And then I think what happened was I needed to go move my vehicle and I was like feeling fine. So I asked if I could like go move my truck and then put more money in the meter or whatever, since you have to pay for parking everywhere.
Of course.
So I'm like, well, that's handy. So then I left, I did that, I came back. They hooked me back up. Thank God I came back and didn't go home or anything, because then shit just went sideways after that.
Oh my goodness.
And
So
his
not
heart
much
rate
time.
just dropped and stuff. And nobody ever told me why. I don't think they actually even know.
That's insane.
And I don't get.
And
I was very hard on myself because I was like, what the
course.
hell? Like two pregnancies, both of them, and they're both fucking like that. Like, why?
Yeah. And then when they don't answer, that just leaves stuff. Like, and I know, I'm sure they've got a million other things to do, but sometimes that does get frustrating when you're just like, well, but that a simple, like at least a little bit, or where can I research or can I book another appointment to talk about this? Like anything, any sort of support.
Mm-hmm. Well, they did say, or my doctor told me after, she's like, it's possible that your labor might have been progressing quickly and it was just putting Caleb under stress. And that's how he was reacting to it. She's like, he very well could have got his heart rate back up and it could have been normal, like as you contracted more. But she's like, we can't wait in those situations. So
No, you don't want to chance it, unfortunately.
yeah,
If there's a solution to make sure that he can come out safe, you probably want that the most, especially
yeah.
with yourself. You never know what stress that's going to put on your body too, on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Could just be a danger. So then so obviously it was not a fast, but when it came after, how long after, like how was recovery from those? Are they both the same? Were they both different?
Honestly, like I know a lot of people say like C-section is like super hard recovery and stuff, and I honestly didn't find it horrible at all.
Oh, that's awesome. I honestly know,
So
if I had
weird.
a vote, I vote for that.
Right?
Sorry.
Like it's so weird because I like was told all of these things, so I was like expecting it to be awful, especially the first one, and I was like, what, 23 when I had her, so
Yeah,
like
little.
scary. And
yeah.
like I had my appendix out I think the year or before I got pregnant with her, and it was just like one of those laparoscopy surgeries,
Yeah.
which is like the 3 little holes, and I found that recovery harder, which is super weird, and I don't know why, but yeah, like
that's awesome. Your body was
yeah.
just like, sorry we did this to you, so we're gonna heal nicely.
Yeah, like it wasn't too bad. The only thing with
good.
Caleb is my scar looks kind of messed up compared to the first one. Like first one was nice and clean and it healed really good. And now on the one side, I think my doctor said it's where they like tied it off inside. There's like a little bump there. So like if I gain like a pound, it's like it looks like it sticks out on one side and then the other side's flat.
That's wild.
So it really bothers me.
That's fair. That's really fair. And you'd think, like, I don't mean this to sound like that, but you'd think that the second time would be almost better because you'd think progression on procedures and stuff and healing, but maybe it's
and like
the
scar
doctor's
tissue
hand.
too.
Yeah. And then, but maybe that too has to do with like, maybe I wonder if it has to do with you like being a bit of a different age between the two.
Yeah, that's possible.
And how you
For
heal.
sure.
But I'm
And
really glad to hear that.
they do cut you in the same place. So I'm wondering like if I didn't get a buildup of scar tissue. I just thought like if they're going in there and they're taking out another baby that they would like clean up whatever scar tissue was there.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that works. I have no idea.
Neither. I don't know. I don't have time to go to school to figure it out.
Right? Yeah, me either.
I'm so glad you had positive ones. Honestly, like my mom had me. It was really difficult for me naturally for her to have me. And then with my other brother, he came out naturally, but barely, and they almost died. So the third one, they're like,
my
no.
God.
Yeah, they're like, no, like you guys, we almost lost you the last time. You're going in for a C-section. So I watched her heal from that. And that it is like, it was major, but I don't remember her ever really, I think just the whole experience was better in the sense because she didn't have the necessarily panic as much as the first one, right? So
Yes,
that's
being
the one
prepared.
thing. Yeah, I was like, yes, obviously there can be complications in C-sections. I'm not saying that by any means. There is, I'm for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but I I don't know. I feel like if it's scheduled and it goes good, then it's like really good too.
Well, and at least when it's scheduled, like you have time to process everything. Like
Yeah, totally.
you know what to kind of expect, and you at least can kind of
Maybe
relax maybe a little bit.
and set up the support for after, or just like, but when you're going to them, like obviously, would love it if your mom could live with you or a friend could live with you for like a whole week, but that's not always ideal. But when you're doing a natural birth, you don't necessarily think of maybe having that backup. But when you go into a C-section planned, you at least know like, hey, I'm going to have to get support. When you do an emergency, if you don't have that person lined up and you're like in Alberta all by yourself, like I could see that being definitely a difficult time.
Mhm.
But at least I'm so glad that you had like good experiences, things healed well. And I know the one things about scars, it's like there's like a double end to it. It's like you're so proud of what you accomplished, but it's so hard to rework those patterns in your brain where you're just like, fuck, I just wish it wasn't like this though.
Yes, and not be self-conscious or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I honestly, there's like parts of me where like some weeks I'm like, oh, like I really fucking want to go like see a plastic surgeon and like get it fixed.
Yeah. Fair.
And then there's other times where I'm like, you know what? Who fucking cares?
Exactly.
It's just really hard to like stick to one thing.
I know. And you're just like, okay, so when is this pattern going to rework itself? And when are we going to be over this? Because I'm
Exactly.
annoyed. I'm annoyed with myself. I think I've become more and more annoyed as this podcast goes with myself of how like much I've discredited and how much I've spent time on things that now I'm understanding are really silly, but for a long time have been really important. Um,
Oh
so I
yeah,
get
for sure.
those. And it's just like, you have to, when you look at that, right, on those bad days, you're just like, okay, well, this is my, survivor scar, my warrior scar. I did those things. But honestly, all of us are in the same place where we're at those really hard days where your tools and your resources aren't there, and it's just easier to lay the fuck into it. And it's just like, oh damn it. And then the next day you're like, why was I like that?
I know, yeah.
And then you're like,
It
now
all
I'm doing
happens
it again.
probably too much though.
Yes.
Sometimes
And
it's like
and then you give
Jesus.
yourself shit. And then you fall
Yep.
in this cycle of like being in shit with yourself and getting in shit with yourself. And you're just like,
Yep.
can you just stop shitting on yourself, please? And just be aware that, so I mean, it's kind of hard to say if you were to do it again. I know it's hard to um be able to know because your shit kind of happened without you knowing. But is there any piece of advice maybe for anybody that going through similar situations or might be feeling the same that helped you throughout the couple years, like be a more accepting for your situation? Like you said, some you felt like you want to do it naturally and you had the C-section. Is there anything that helped you cope with that, being like, no, I'm still a fucking badass even though society at that time was telling me that, or there's that one fucking bitch in the comment section that says I wasn't a mom because I didn't deliver naturally.
I just think that women don't give themselves enough credit for what their bodies can do.
Totally.
And I don't think we like give ourselves enough grace either. Like you're constantly criticizing yourself, right? Like, I mean, I'm not as bad as I used to be.
Yeah.
Regardless of like childbirth or not. I just feel like with age also, we learn all of those things.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger and I had Maddie, like I really struggled because I just felt like there were so many expectations, and like being young, like you don't fucking know.
No.
And now that
And
I'm older and stuff, I'm like, I don't really give a shit what you think. Like
and too, when you were 23, think about the less support there was than there is now. Like we didn't have Facebook groups like that. We didn't have, you know, the support and knowledge at our fingertips like they do now. Not saying that people at this time, I'm sure you could do the same thing. You had Caleb and it was a different time. Now
Mhm.
there's still a big lack in that. But I think back, like we didn't have these social media groups where people are like, there's lots of fake. But at that time, okay, sorry, not that being said, it just came in around that time, and there was no like, we knew that was fake and highlight reels. It was very still new, but there wasn't like the supporting good part, educational part of social media. It was
Oh
just,
yeah.
I feel like that's what kind of Kayla was in the same time. And I feel like you guys were around that same time. So she said she was looking at all these perfect Pinterest moms, not realizing yet that these were just highlight reels, and looking at herself being like, what?
Yeah, and it's like, no, I don't want to fucking play with my kids all the time. Or
Yeah.
I don't want to like do crafts all the time. Like I just don't, like some people are into stuff like that. And then like you like when people talk about all of the things they do with their kids, you're like, oh my God, I'm
How do you have
horrible.
time?
Like sometimes sometimes that's how I feel. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, like I really slacking, like.
Yeah. But and then too though, like, and that's just to say though, like for example, for me, if I'm when I notice when I do those more things, that's not necessarily because I am doing it to help other people, but that's a form too for me of a problem where I'm giving so much and doing so much to provide for others that I don't take time for myself. So sometimes it's like, I mean, I'm not saying all Pinterest moms or by any means, but like sometimes some women are doing that to keep themselves busy, and it's not necessarily a positive thing. It might seem
No.
like it is, but
Mm-hmm.
watch those kids that have a fucking Pinterest craft every weekend possibly won't want to do that when they're older because it was like too much, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a balance where it's just like whatever type works for you. Like you're outdoor with your kids all the time. You're doing stuff with them and teaching them how to do, like sports and outdoor activities and you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
you guys are doing different things than like crafty because you're just not a crafty person and
Yeah.
that's okay. You don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's right. Like, and I think again, there's your mom. It's like, I'm going to make a button or a saying where it's just like this mom guilt button. Be like, hey, take your finger off the button. Take
Yeah,
it off.
exactly.
Take it
Yeah.
off. Get off Pinterest. Delete that
Yep.
app if you're not into it. Just delete it.
Mm-hmm.
And know that a lot of people are highlight reels because honestly, I want to see real, but like I don't want you guys to see me. I will post when I'm crying, but I don't want you guys to see me crying every single time I cry.
Yeah, no.
I
Like
really don't.
nobody wants everyone to see that. Like that's
No,
still you
it's
still want
still
your private moments.
yeah, but it's like there's a balance between showing up real and being honest and being like, hey, this is how my experience was. This is how I reacted to it. This is what I came out of it, without
Mm-hmm.
always being like, oh, my life sucks all the time. Like it's nice to have a balance.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So for any moms with like the care after for the C-section, is there any advice? Like, is there anything that you learned in the moment that you wish you would have known?
Um, like for aftercare or like
Yeah.
during?
Yeah, because you
Um,
really didn't get time to prepare to have one. So
no.
you unfortunately don't think you can give too
I
much
would
advice
say
on that.
I would say take the help that is offered to you
Yes, that's a
for
great
for
advice.
healing, for sure. Because I
Yes.
know, like when you first start doing the mom thing, like you want to do everything your way. You want everyone to do what you're doing because it's for you. But like if people are offering to help you, just let them do it.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It is. It's very hard. Like I struggled with that, but it definitely is a positive.
Yeah, and again too, like I said on a few couple episodes, that's another thing that we have ingrained in us somehow. I don't know, obviously, generationally been passed down, where it's like we know that having a community and family and friends around us and a support in all aspects in life are so great. When did we become super guilty and afraid to ask for that help, even though we know deep down inside that's beneficial for us in our situation and our environment? I don't know where we do that. Like,
I
what?
don't know. That's been a struggle for me like my whole adult life, I feel like.
Oh, I'm
Is
the worst
and
at work.
try asking, like I don't like asking for help. I'd rather
No.
just struggle and do it myself. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And I've realized like there's moments that it's good to do that. Sometimes you just want an ugly cry by yourself. You don't really need someone, or you don't have the answers to the questions of why you're upset or what's going on, or you're not ready to talk about it. But sometimes it is really nice to have that person. Like one day I just broke down a couple weekends ago and Grant's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to cry. Just hold me. I don't
Yes.
know. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
just hold me. And that's hard because you just like, you don't want to be vulnerable and that person think you're emotionally crazy. But sometimes if you keep it inside, it's just really hard. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're not a less of a mother if you're like, yo, this just happened. I need help. Like, if anything, that's a great mom because it's identifying immediately and outsourcing help.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. That makes total sense.
I think that's awesome. And I hope that that's where we're going as a community, like nurses are great, but they have a lot of things to do as well. And, so it's good to have that support system and that cheerleader and let them help you. Because
Yes.
I'm guilty. And I think you're the same way. I'm guilty of being like, no, I need help. I usually am like, get myself in so much shit. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I need help now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Last minute when you really
yeah.
need it.
Yeah, you're like, okay, cool. So yeah, so definitely ask for the help that's needed, take it and do what's best for you. And I think for you, did you have any negative with your like doctors or physicians, or are they pretty good taking care of you? I would like to hear a good physician.
No, actually, I don't
Oh,
really remember the Maddie one as much since it was so long ago. But with
of
Caleb,
course.
no, I had a female doctor and she was amazing.
Oh, good. Okay, thank goodness. Because I was like, if this seems to be a new theme, and I'm just waiting for the day where someone's like, "No, I had a great doctor and they took care of me." So that's really awesome. I'm really glad. I'm really glad just like you didn't have necessarily a positive going into it, but the overall outcome ended up being way better for you than you expected.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah, as scary as it was at the time.
Yeah, no, totally. And you probably definitely have carried some PTSD from that, I'm sure.
Maybe the first year or 2.
Yeah. And then sometimes you'll just like have a random dream about it and you wake up and you're like, what? We're back to this shit. I thought I was over this.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's definitely an experience, I will tell
Yeah.
you.
I'm glad. Well, I'm so good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Is there
Of
anything else
course.
a part of your childbirth story that we didn't get to today? Or
No,
do you
I think
feel like you did
that's
good?
all I really can remember anyway.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
No, that's great. I learned so much more about C-sections and it was a really, like we don't want we want everyone's story to be what it is. So if it leans to positive, great. If it leans to negative, great. It's all experience. It's all okay. But it does get really exciting when you hear people being like, you know what, I was really worried about this. I had all this anxiety, rightfully fucking so.
mhm.
But I got through it. It was good in the end. I had a good recovery. I wouldn't necessarily say that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was like, and I just love that. So thank you for sharing that today and showing a different side. We haven't had a C-section childbirth story interview yet. So that was really great to have you as our first and
Oh,
on your
nice.
very first episode. Did you have a good time?
I did. It's awesome
Good.
talking to you again too. It's been a long time.
I know, I love it. And it's just don't worry. Like I said, you'll get addicted. And then it's like, then it just seems like we're just talking on the phone, catching up about shit and getting to know each other better. And I think that's my favorite thing is just learning to get to know all these people in the community and, for friends to maybe reach out to be like, oh, I had no idea. Like, thanks for letting me know that. And so I really hope that happens for you and you come back on the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you again for coming again, girl. And we are going to jump on into our, if you can believe it, guys, our first fourth interview of the show.